Jamming tunes there's your radio dial on this Monday morning is set to the Richard Schwartz and Associates Entry Lawyers Legal Power Hour. I am Patrick Wooten, joined by Adrian Akins and Walker Lacey. So is Lance called him the Dream Team, which just means he's never met a real Dream Team, apparently, if that's what he's referring to us.
Reminds me of the Olympics team, the basketball, like the Dream Team. The Schwartz
we're
crew,
just
man,
like
I'm
that.
telling you.
Exactly, that's right.
When it comes to legal, yeah.
Now, who's Rodman, who's Pippen, who's Jordan?
Y'all got to figure that out.
Adrian's the only one who looks good in a dress. Adrian's the only one who looks good in a dress.
You're Rodman, then. You're Rodman.
That's right.
Hey, and with the music, if y'all ever want me to change it up, that's fine. This was like what's programmed for the Schwartz show, but if you ever say, hey, rock it out or give me some blues, you just give me a...
Patrick's a big rap fan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Right up my alley. Not at all. Yeah, you have the license to throw some variety out there, Lance.
Cool,
so
man.
you can have some fun with it for sure. That's right, dealer's choice. I like it. But happy Monday morning to everybody. We appreciate you listening to the show. If you'd like to chime in on the C Spire text line, you can do that at 601-879-4395. Or you can give us a call at 888-808-8637. We are actually going to talk about some legal things today. But before we start on this first working Monday, where kids are back in school today on a nice balmy day, I felt bad for anyone that had to stand at a school bus stop this morning because it was chilly out there with the wind and hardcore Adrian going to the gym at 4:45.
Hardcore Patrick, too.
Yeah, but I'm later. Mine started at 5, so you're 4:45. So look at you. But so how was the weekend? Last weekend before we get back to, it's like back to reality is what it kind of feels like. The last 2 weeks have been somewhat quiet, time off from work. But now it's like back to a 40-hour work week.
It's not really quiet when your kids are all under 6 at home.
You had a part to play in that, I would just say.
Yeah, you're right. They're cute, but I'm pretty happy about the routine.
Yeah, you're glad that school and daycare and everything else is back up.
Happy to be back. Can't wait to go to work, Patrick.
That's right. Routine's a good thing. Routine is a good thing.
Got to have it.
And you've got youngin.
2 youngins, 7 and 3. It's sad for them having to go back, but man, I'm shedding a tear with them. It's awful. No,
hey,
they're hanging in there.
They grow up fast. You all know I have mine are older, 29, 19, and 16 later this week. So the time flies by. So enjoy it because trust me, Christmas is a different vibe with teenagers than it is, young children. I had nothing to put together, which is a blessing when it comes to Christmas. No Barbie dream houses or Tonka toys or any of that good stuff. I'm sure you all were all doing that.
Oh, yeah. That's the only toys we seem to buy are the ones you have to put together, assemble. They give you the little tool, the little ratchet. I've got nice ones now, but, those are the ones you hurt your fingers on.
And you can't put it together until at least 10 p.m. Christmas Eve.
Oh, exactly.
Or at least that's what my husband thinks. Maybe that's not true, but...
That's absolutely the worst thing I ever had to put together was a Barbie dream house. Worst thing ever. I mean, with the elevator, and it wouldn't quite line up in the elevator shaft of the home. And I was like, Barbie's a little over the top since she has an elevator anyway in her house. But I do not miss it. Now it's just literally the Giftful app. As your kids get older, they'll have the Giftful app, and it's just you see in there. It's like, what about this? What about the shoes, clothes, makeup? I mean, all that kind of stuff. Which it is very nice. But it's tough. My birthday's right before Christmas. My youngest daughter's birthday is this week, so we get a tough little 3-week stretch there of getting through 2 birthdays and
my
Christmas.
daughter's birthday is Wednesday. And she's already upset that her birthday is so close to Christmas. Maybe I should do a better job of making her feel.
You got to make it feel special. You got to separate it out.
I do what I can.
Separate it out. Make it feel special.
She'll be 7 on Wednesday.
There you go. Well, happy early birthday. We know she'll have a big time. Is there a theme? What's the theme for the party? Is she having a party?
So she is having a party, but she wants to have it at the trampoline park a couple weeks from now. And she wants a cat and dog themed party. She wants puppy dog and kitty cat plates, napkins, etc. So that's what we're rolling with. I don't argue anymore when she has strong opinions about things. So
that's
cat dog
great.
Party.
That's awesome. I remember we did one of those one time, so that is very cool. We were actually reminiscing with my youngest daughter, when she turned 2, so think about it, this will be 14 years ago, is when we had a big snow and ice storm. We lived in our old house. We actually moved up her party on the day of because it was like a 4 o'clock party, and we literally called everybody who was coming and were like, come at 1 so they could come before it got really, really bad in the neighborhood, because that's what she was looking at, because there's a chance of a wintry mix this Thursday, and she's like, I'm getting my driver's license on that day. I don't care if it's a foot of snow. I will go to the driver license bureau to get my license, because that's just her singular focus, is that she wants to drive to school after getting her license.
Driven. I love it. Yeah.
It is. It's a whole different world, folks. It's different. Those who have kids, you absolutely understand. So, New Year, we talked a little bit resolutions. I'm going to start with Walker. So, do you have any?
Oh, man, I think the main one for me is drink more water. That's going to be the one I'm going to plan to do every day, is drink a little bit more water. Stop drinking 3 or 4 cups of coffee.
Okay.
Just be a little. That's a small one I feel like I can accomplish. All these other grandiose ones, I'll save those.
That's about my speed right there.
Right.
Yeah, I'll just eat more butterscotch.
Yeah, we got
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
It sounds
Handle
simple.
that.
It's hard. It's hard.
But did you get one of the big mugs? Am I going to walk in your office and see you have one of the big?
No, I did not plan for this at all. I just thought of it 10 minutes ago.
That's right, as we talked about it pre-show when we talked about resolutions. So, gotcha.
I already lost my chance on a lot, but I have drank water every day since the first, so I can keep that one going. Just
there you go. Perfect. And Adrian's anti-resolution.
Yeah, well, I don't know that anti is the right word, but I did have some time to think about this and still don't have an answer.
So water didn't sound that bad, does it?
Yeah,
Wow, it's got
drink
genius
more water,
over
yeah.
here.
I'm not a resolution person, so I'm with you.
Adrian's just to wake up every day.
Yeah, I like to set, I don't want to disappoint myself. I like to set my expectations. I mean, I want to be consistent about working out, but as we discussed, I think we all sort of already are.
Yeah.
I could probably put my phone down more around my kids, things like that, small changes that I need to make anyway, not necessarily in a new year, But I don't have any per se resolutions.
What's disappointing is none of these are about work. Like working more,
I'm
helping.
already so good at my job.
Oh, is that it? Okay, okay? Duly noted. So
I'm just going with I'm going to use more fabric softener.
There you go. Hey.
That's right.
Remind myself each time.
That's right. There you go. I like it. So that's out of the box. That's Lance for sure. But that's great.
What about you, Patrick?
Well, as we talked about, mine is to read the Bible for the second time, cover to cover. And I actually put it out there. Usually I just kind of write down a resolution on a sticky note and have it somewhere in my closet so that I can see it. But this one, I've told family, I've told friends, now we've put it out here in the universe. And right now, I'm 5 days in. I've read it, following the reading plan that the church has. So it's on the
that's
app.
what you say. How does anybody check you up on it, though? That's one of those personal ones.
Well, the good news is the app from the church, believe it or not, Lance, gives you a check mark each day. You read it, you go all the way down, then you hit complete, and it gives you the check mark.
So you have to read it to hit complete.
Yes.
Yes,
You have to scroll. You have to scroll. And I do enjoy it. So it's.
Is it a website, or are you doing it from the Bible?
It is the Bible.
The Bible.
The Bible. But the church is the one they post. It's right now. It's 2 chapters of Genesis, a chapter of Mark is what the reading plan is right now. I don't know what'll come once we finish Genesis and Mark, where they'll send us next.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Does it continue through December? I mean, when are you supposed to be finished?
It's a 1 year. They literally have a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan. I chose the 1 year plan. When I did it 15 years ago, as I told you, when I was on vacation, jokingly, as my wife calls it, in scenic Afghanistan, and I just started in Genesis and read straight through.
Wow.
So I do kind of like how they're doing it with Old Testament and New Testament mixed together. And it's interesting because Mark's not the first book of the New Testament. Matthew is. So they're not even having you start in the first book of the New Testament. So I have a feeling they'll probably jump you around in some sort of order that they think makes logical sense, because the books are not truly just in sequential order as it goes. So that's what we got. But that's mine. Besides trying to be more consistent with working out, as I'm now closer to 60 after my last birthday than I am to 50.
What are your work resolutions, Patrick?
My work resolutions are to continue to help us move the average fee, which means we get more money for our clients. So we had the best year ever on average attorney's fee. So appreciate that. and just be more deliberate in interacting with folks. Because I just get pigeonholed sitting in my office doing things, but to force myself to come out of the office and just, check on the various departments and everyone else there. To help keep the ship going, as we call it, the Schwartz ship, going in the right direction. Because we've been it was a great year. 24 was a great year, thanks to listeners and the thousands of clients. But there's always things every one of us can improve. Sure. So that's what we can do. But that's kind of where I am work-wise. Hopefully get less calls from Richard. Love you, Richard, but hopefully get less calls from you.
Yeah, me too. This cruise that he's on has been pretty nice.
But he still calls me. I know exactly what time he's going to call me every afternoon our time, because he is out of the country on a cruise. I know exactly between this kind of 60-minute window, I'm getting at least one or two phone calls from Richard, because it's happened every day.
16 hours, 17 hours.
17 hours ahead of us is where he is. So it's already Tuesday where he is.
Call me anytime.
That's right. Well, you were listening to the Richard Schwartz and Associates Injury Lawyers Legal Power Hour, and we'll be right back after this word. 4395. I'm Patrick Wooten, Adrian Akins, and we've got Walker Lacey here this morning. So here's the first question. Joe asks, if I declare bankruptcy, can I keep my house and truck paid for? The truck's paid for, the house is not. I mean, we're not a bankruptcy firm, so I will say that. John, I said Joe, John in Pontotoc. So if your truck's paid for, you're not going to lose it. Your house, you're going to have to make it. So there's Chapter 13, there's Chapter 7. There's two different bankruptcies that you can file under. You will have to go to a bankruptcy attorney.
Right.
I mean, there are people who that's what they do day in and day out is bankruptcy, and can advise you. But depending on which one you do, typically you're not going to lose the house, but a lot of it may depend on how deep in the hole you are. What say you two? Anything on top of that?
What you just said, really. I mean, I don't have a lot of knowledge on bankruptcy law, but I know each plan is different, and it all depends on how much you owe to your creditors.
Yep.
And they'll come up with a plan that suits you best.
Sure. The only thing I really know about bankruptcy court is it's a court of second chances. So I think most of the time they're going to be looking to help you, get through whatever situation and get whatever these creditors have, something satisfiable. And I think it's going to be pretty hard for them to take your house, but I would certainly consult a bankruptcy attorney on that. I know that they operate just fee, right? It's just a fee that's cooked into the thing, the actual case. So normally there's a lot of good ones around here, so check them out.
Yeah, and the one thing I would say, as it ties into our practice, if you ever go file bankruptcy and you have an open personal injury case or a workers' comp case, you need to tell your bankruptcy attorney.
Absolutely.
Because our involvement in bankruptcy comes into play when someone was already in bankruptcy, then has an accident or has an accident and then files it, and then we may a lot of times have to get the settlement approved by the bankruptcy court. But you can't hide the ball. That's where you end up running into problems if you try to hide the ball and not tell your attorney or the bankruptcy court about, hey, I've got this ongoing personal injury case, because you think I'm going to get this money and I don't have to tell them about this money and I can keep the money. The good news is ultimately it does help you get out of bankruptcy faster. So, honesty is the key for sure when you're filing all of your bankruptcy information. List all your debts. Don't be like, oh, I'm not worried about that one or that one. Make sure you list them.
Maybe they won't find
all.
this
That's
one,
right.
Nope.
Exactly. So next one is Andy. Long question. It's a great question here. It says, is there a single source or a few sources online to search for a company that was brought to litigation numerous times by individuals nationwide for a product that caused illness to its users? From what I found, it looks like the company would settle the claims out of court to continue selling their product. That way they didn't have the proper directive in place for the protection of the user. I'm trying to think. I don't recall. There's not just a general source.
Database.
Yeah, there's not a national database where we can search to say Sam Smith has been, sued this many times, or this product. If they've been sued repeatedly, you would really think there would have been some sort of mass tort out there, i.e., the Roundup that caused cancer. Right now, you have the 3M earplug cases that are going on. So when you get a product, and there's thankfully enough wonderful personal injury firms that when there is a dangerous product on the market, we do all the research and figure out the science and does it cause this repeated injury and so forth, and you end up getting a mass tort out of that. But there's not just a general database anywhere that I'm aware of, John, Andy.
No, I mean, as far as I know, too, it's one of the things you could call us about, talk to. Maybe we've heard other clients that have something like that's going on, and then put the pieces together. And like you said, now you're at a class action. So, I think that would be the most important part. Talk to somebody who, share what you have, share what you know, and go from there. Other than that, some Google foo, looking around, searching names, products, company, CEO, who knows.
Yep. Exactly. So Michael just asked, how long do you have to file a personal injury lawsuit? And we'll apply this to Mississippi.
Well, it depends on exactly, who you're suing exactly. But if it's just a private individual, it's 3 years. In Mississippi, the statute is 1 year if it's a governmental entity, a police officer, fire truck, anything like that hits you. Slip and falls, most premises cases as well are 3 years unless they happened at a state-run entity like UMC, then it would also be 1 year. But the general rule is 3 years unless it's a special, company that you're suing.
Yep. And the key is we would, if someone's in an accident, encourage you to reach out to, a law firm, preferably our law firm, sooner rather than later. Because there's a lot of evidence that we can gather, things with regard to, treatment, because you get it, I was in the wreck, I feel fine, you don't do anything, and then a month later, 6 weeks later, you're still hurting, so you finally decide, I'm going to go get checked out now. Well, guess what? The insurance company's going to have red flags all over your file at that point and start saying, that's not related to the accident. We don't know what you've been doing for the last month or 6 weeks or so forth. So like anything, it's really important, Michael, to reach out to a law firm quickly. And then he also asked medical malpractice. What's our med mal statute?
I believe it's 1 year.
I think it's 2.
Is it 2?
2 years. I think is what you've got. But that's a whole another ball game. Yeah. Tort reform came in, and it is so challenging on a med mal case that you have to already have your expert before you can ever file suit with regard to those. We partner with a couple wonderful law firms on medical malpractice cases. So, we don't file them, but we work with firms who do that. And that's kind of the same thing. Bankruptcy attorneys, you don't use the word specialization a lot in law, but that's the area that they focus on. Just like typically a medical malpractice law firm, that is their niche that they are going to work on because they are uber expensive and then very, very challenging. I mean, if they have 100 calls on somebody with a potential medical malpractice case, they're probably going to take maybe 2-3 tops of those cases, just because the way the law is written. It is really challenging from 20-plus years ago when tort reform kicked in and capped your non-economic damages at $500,000 on a medical malpractice case versus a car wreck case where they're $1 million non-economic cap. So it's definitely a different avenue. So Janet said, morning, my husband says Richard Schwartz Legal Hour definitely needs some new music. So you got some marching orders, Lance. So
no pressure.
But maybe better than the last intro music. So kind of peppier. We're the happy firm. We love helping people. So, we need some good peppy music is what we need.
Okay.
All right. So I wrote down legal misconceptions. Because I'm going to throw some things out here. We'll have heard them for sure, and I want to know how you would respond to the client. So you call your client up, and they're like, I have full coverage. Is there such thing as full coverage?
I mean, unfortunately, I think that as a lot of people are told that insurance companies a lot of times don't want people to have uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. And so they tell them that they have full coverage if they have, the $25,000 per person, $50,000 per accident limits that are required for liability coverage in Mississippi. But that does not necessarily mean that you have collision coverage, uninsured motorist coverage, rental car. There's a lot of questions that need to be asked. And so normally we ask, to see the policy to be able to tell a client exactly what they have. But I do think that a lot of people are, told that they have full coverage when they do not necessarily at all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then I know one thing, too, is someone may carry 50,000 or even 100,000 in liability coverage, but only has 25,000 in uninsured / underinsured motorist coverage. That stuff needs to match for sure.
Oh yeah, in Mississippi, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell them all the time.
You know, unfortunately, and we talk about it on almost every show, Mississippi battles Florida for the most uninsured drivers in the state. The difference is this: Mississippi liability insurance is required by statute. In Florida, it is not. They are not required to carry liability insurance in the state of Florida. They're required to carry PIP coverage, personal injury protection of $10,000, but not liability coverage. So, you know, we see it all the time that cases where someone hires us and unfortunately the person who caused the wreck doesn't have insurance and our folks don't have uninsured motorist coverage, so there's nothing you can do. Now on that, you know, the music's playing, so we'll get to this, but take me through a case to where the person who hit them doesn't have coverage. Our client has UM and they go, I don't want to use that coverage, my rates are going to go up. So we'll talk about that on the the other side. You are listening to the Richard Schwartz and Associates Injury Lawyers, and we'll be right back. For all our college listeners, because I know classes haven't started back yet, meet with your college counselors and go over what you should take. I ended up graduating college with like 148 hours because I took so much stuff that did not
apply. Put that in perspective for me. How many are you
supposed
to have?
120. 120 is what you're supposed to have.
Overshot it a little bit.
Overshot it. So I ended up having to take summer school the summer of 90, took 12 hours, and then had to take 9 hours in the fall to graduate in December of 90. But the summer of 90, I did a radio morning show. The general manager of the campus station was one of my best friends. He asked me to do it, so I did it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Nice. But I closed every show with Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World. That was my closing.
Did you sing it or
song. I just played it.
Okay.
Like he would give me a music list and I'd walk in and I'd throw it in the trash the first thing because it was 6 to 9. It was 3 hours those 3 days. I just literally played Tin Lizzy. Oh, wow. I mean, all over. Def Leppard. Sweet. Van Halen was just a complete Go-Go's. It was the most eclectic mix of music I would play on that, show.
I love when you make me feel young, Patrick.
That's right. You are still a young age, Ian.
Come on.
So it was good music, that's for sure.
We do have a call.
Okay.
And it is Bob from Jackson. He had a legal lawsuit question he wanted to cover with you guys.
Okay.
And he is ready to roll.
Good morning and Happy New Year, Bob.
Hey, Patrick. Good morning to you and your team and Richie and everybody that's in your law firm. I had to call you today, Patrick, and ask you this question since there have been several ISIS attacks and over since 2006, like the Pulse nightclub shooting and the San Bernardino attacks and everything. But I had to ask you and your staff today this question. With the latest attack being in Bourbon Street on New Year's, and all the college kids and the Mississippians and different people that have perished and died and injured as a result, is there a lawsuit, in y'all's opinion, that should be filed on behalf of the victims and injured in the Bourbon Street terrorist attack due to the 2019 assessment report security a briefing that was sent to the city of New Orleans detailing that they are vulnerable at a vehicle attack and attack on Bourbon Street with broken security barriers and insufficient security things that would keep people safe on Bourbon Street. And I don't know, Patrick, have any of y'all ever been on Bourbon Street before?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes. All of us have.
And I just had to ask y'all this question: Is there several lawsuits? Is this a big potential lawsuit thing with the assessment that was sent in 2019? And I'll let y'all respond and answer.
All right. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate you listening and calling as always. Very intriguing question. I mean, anyone can be sued for anything at any time. That's doesn't mean it's proper. Certainly I know there are some attorneys out there nationwide that have thought about, can we file suit against ISIS? Well, the problem is ISIS is not a corporation. I mean, it's just a a group of people, and that's the title. So, trying to find the proper entity, because you've got to get service of process. If you even manage to get service of process on somebody, are you going to be able to collect a judgment on them? Certainly what happened in New Orleans and what has happened around the world, with the attacks, that have been dealt by ISIS are just awful. I mean, we've all been on Bourbon Street, and have enjoyed it. So I can't imagine, what those folks were thinking last week when that just horrible tragedy. And thank goodness the bombs that he placed did not go off, because it could have been so much worse. But I know actually some angles that major national law firms have taken, have been suing like Google and other tech companies, saying that through their systems they have been abetting and aiding, ISIS and other terrorist organizations. So, but I know in 2023 there was one that was filed. I don't know whatever came of it against Google. But I don't think you'd ever be able to actually get the case to the finish line against ISIS.
Well, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I do think there's probably not a lawsuit that could be filed against ISIS. To Bob's point, I don't know about the 2019 security assessment, but I would imagine that there will be some lawsuits against the city of New Orleans for having barriers that didn't, that were broken or that weren't placed in the proper spot. But again, I'm not sure how much that would have done to prevent what happened. I think a lot of people in New Orleans would say if you lock down Bourbon Street, it's going to take away a lot of what New Orleans is. So I don't know. I'm sure there will be some suits against the city, but I'm not sure how successful they would be.
So, but yeah, we appreciate you listening, and thanks for the question, Bob. So going back, uninsured motorists, we get it all the time where someone, we call them up and say, hey, you were hit by, Frank doesn't have insurance. We know when we, signed you up, we asked about uninsured motorist coverage, and you have it. So we'd like to permission to file a claim against your uninsured motorist coverage. And they go, absolutely not. My rates are going to go up. How do you all respond to our client to get them to say, that's what you're paying for?
You want to start?
No, I hear Walker Lacey down in his office explaining this, so I want to hear it on the air.
Well, I guess the biggest thing is that rates go up, incrementally every year. I think, we just looked at that stat where, even if you're not at fault, most insurances are going to raise your rates, even if you don't get any sort of settlement or anything. If you're in no fault at all is assigned to your accident, your rates are still going to go up. So it's a, futility of the rate's going to go up anyway. And second off, you've been paying for this service for a long time. You paid for these premiums. You paid for this protection. And now at the very, the moment of need, you decline it. So I think that's one of the most, that's probably, my pitch to my clients. I don't know how y'all pitch it. You hate to say that there's no money regardless, if we don't. But otherwise, that's sort of the general tone of my pitch.
No, I agree. I think what you just said, that you're paying for it anyway, so now is the time to use it. We pay so much for insurance premiums, and you almost never need them. And so the uninsured motorist coverage is specifically made for an instance where you're in an accident with someone that doesn't have coverage. Right. And so the amount that you would get, especially if you have significant injuries and medical bills, is going to outweigh any minimal rise in the premiums that you might have.
Yep. Exactly. All right. So the next one you get is you call the client up, insurance company has offered the policy limits, and you say, hey, insurance company A has offered the policy limits of X. And then you get the response is, well, they're an insurance company. They got millions of dollars. They have more than that. How do you respond to that?
This one is a tough one to explain, and I think one of probably all of our least favorite parts of our jobs, because a lot of times, you are very injured and your medical bills are high, and the amount that you may get is not going to begin to compensate you for your injuries. But unfortunately, the minimum limits in Mississippi are $25,000, and the insurance company only has to pay the policy for which premiums have been being paid for. And so at the end of the day, there's just not any money that they have to pay for your individual claim that is, more than what the policy limits are that they have for that situation.
Yep. And that ties back into if you have uninsured motorists, it's the same as underinsured motorists. So it's another coverage avenue.
I know we go through what would happen if you sued the person directly, and there was a question about bankruptcy earlier. And so what we explain to people is that even if we file a lawsuit against the individual that hit you, it may take 2 years to get to court. And even if the jury awards you $1 million, you would essentially still only get the $25,000 from the insurance company, and then an IOU, basically a judgment against the other person for the difference. But they can always file bankruptcy, and then it's really difficult to collect on any funds in addition to what the insurance company has.
Yep.
Yeah. And traditionally, as we've said, if someone is paying for a $25,000, a minimum limits policy, that's all they typically can afford.
Right.
And so the term is judgment proof at the end of the day. You're going to spend more money chasing after them than you would probably likely ever collect. I think the stats are that I've heard, of course, upwards of 30% of our drivers are uninsured in Mississippi. And then the other stat I've heard is 2 of those who have insurance, 2 out of every 3 carry the minimal limits. Right. And that figure hasn't changed in a number of years. Thankfully, it's much better than when I started, when it was a $10,000, $20,000 policy, which was horrible. But now the 25 really needs to be upped because it needs to be tied to inflation, and we need to get the legislature, which convenes, I think, starting today, to look at that, because $25,000 does not go very far in an auto accident case, unfortunately, nowadays. But we appreciate you listening to the Richard Schwartz and Associates Injury Lawyers Legal Power Hour. We'll be back for the 4th and final segment right after this. Legal Power Hour in the 4th and final segment. Patrick Wooten, Adrian Akins, Walker Lacey. We appreciate all the texts. We appreciate the phone call from Bob. And we got a great question here. So, Jeremy, thank you so much for texting this one in, because it's going to let us talk about stacking. Oh, nice. Says, according to my insurance agent, he told me my uninsured is stackable. I have 4 cars with with $50,000 each. So if I had to use it, I would be covered up to $200,000. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I will say verify that it's on each individual car. I had it recently where a client had 4 vehicles. This was a 25, and he thought they applied to all the other 3. So he thought he had 4 cars with stacking, and unfortunately get the policy and have to break the news. You're only covered for 1. So check the policy, make sure it's on each individual one. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. It stacks. Yeah,
that is the one benefit in Mississippi, is you can stack your policies only on uninsured motorists. Doesn't apply to liability. Liability is if you hit somebody, so it's only going to be the coverage on the car you are in. And the other thing to realize is you'll hear us have conversations with a client that says, hey, you got hit by Mary. Mary had $50,000. In your example, Jeremy, you've got 4 cars. They come to $200,000. We're actually going to tell you you only have $150 available, because your insurance carrier gets credit for whatever amount of coverage, liability coverage that Mary had that you're collecting. And again, the key is you have to collect the policy limits. So it couldn't be if she's got 50 and her insurance company turned around and offered you 40 and you wanted to take it. You can't then go back to your insurance company, because you have to get the policy limits from the liability carrier. Now, that could be you getting it all, or the situations that we've all run into where there's 6 people involved in a wreck and it's a 25-50 policy, or even a 50-100 policy, and then we're having to do that good old pro rata split of the money. Then you can potentially go after your underinsured motorist coverage. But the key is you got to look at your policy. You hit the nail on the head. People think all the time, I've got all this, and they don't.
Comes back to that I'm fully covered.
That's right, exactly.
Misconception in the beginning,
Yep.
Got to check into it. Got to read the fine print.
Yes, for sure. All right, TikTok ban, 13 days away from TikTok, being banned on the legislation. Are you a TikToker, Adrian?
Only recently, because TikTok made it, where you couldn't watch the TikToks. A few months ago, like used to, people would send me TikToks. I could watch it. Then at some point it moved to where you had to have a TikTok account. I resisted for a long time. Everyone made fun of me. And now I go down long TikTok rabbit holes, and I'm really happy it's in my life. For those 10 to midnight hours when I'm trying to fall asleep. So
that's right.
Very healthy.
Walker?
Yeah, absolutely. The 10 minutes before bed is the best 3 hours I ever spend on TikTok.
Exactly.
I love it. Absolutely.
I actually I am on it, and the firm has a TikTok account, so if it does get banned, you have 13 days, folks, to go back and look at our TikToks on the Schwartz and Associates account. But I bought a Christmas present for my wife that was advertised on TikTok, which was this plug-in, heating mat that you put on your counter to keep food warm.
Oh, wow.
And we used it Christmas Day. It was like such a big hit.
No
like
way.
my wife looked, she's like, I'd seen that online, and like we did. So we pulled the stuff out of the oven, and boy, it did an absolutely amazing job.
I think shout out to Cooper Miles. He's on TikTok Shop a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's bought us a lot of
Cooper.
random little trinkets from the TikTok Shop.
Mm-hmm.
Including a fantasy football championship and loser ring. I just wanted to say that I won the fantasy football championship.
Hey, I did not win the loser ring because I
Yeah.
won the last game of the season. So
Just wanted to throw it out there.
Shout out to
There you
Rebecca
go.
who won.
Out of 16
That's
people,
right.
13 men. I
That's
won the
right.
league.
You won it. But for the record, she's the commissioner. So, I wonder about that,
Little
folks.
asterisk beside
Some
it.
That's right.
sore loser men
That's
around here.
exactly.
Maybe,
so
maybe.
crazy. But all right, got a quick riddle for you before we get to the end of the show. So let's see. You've got young kids, so this should be in your
You're making me
wheelhouse.
nervous, Patrick.
It says, I am not clothes, but I cover your body. The more I am used, the thinner I grow.
Skin.
What am I?
Got to be skin.
No. Your
Hold on.
skin's not growing thinner unless you're 180.
It feels it.
Yeah, I feel like mine.
Yes.
Do you need me to
Okay.
say it
Yes,
again?
one more time.
Okay, one more
I am not clothes, but I cover your body. The more I am used, the thinner I grow. What am I?
Patrick.
This is really disappointing.
Oh, you know the answer. Tell us.
The answer is a bar of soap.
Oh,
Oh. What?
A bar. All right, can you get this one? What travels around the world but stays in one spot?
I think I've heard.
Equator?
That would make sense. It's a good
That would
answer.
make sense, but
a
that's
good
not
answer.
what's
never
written.
really
That's
liked
not what's
riddles.
written. That's not
Stays
what's
in the
written on
same
riddles.com. It's
Oh,
a
wow.
stamp.
Oh,
A
stamp.
stamp.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank
Making
goodness,
us all feel
folks,
dumb.
I can tell you, Adrian and Walker
That's
are
right.
much better lawyers than they are at guessing riddles.
We're
So
smart
that's
in
not
one
their
area.
wheelhouse.
Smart in one
But
area,
if
not the
you're
other.
in a car wreck, slip and fall, on-the-job injury, Social Security disability, any personal injury claim, you know what to do. One call, that's all, 601 or 662-988-8888. Thanks for listening. Stay warm and have a great week.